So we will pick your brains a little bit today. It is my honor tonight to introduce Professor Kirthi and to introduce tonight's topic. Professor Premadasa is here on a visit as a US Fulbright specialist. He has received this specialization based on his extensive research in the field of education. And on top of that, he's also a professor of mathematics at University of Wisconsin Platteville. Platteville, I pronounced that right. Before I give the floor to him, I'd also like to emphasize that Professor Premadasa is this year's recipient of the highest teaching award in the University of Wisconsin Systems Regions, the Teaching Excellence Award, which is only awarded to 2 people out of thousands and thousands of nominees in the state. Really, it really deserves an applause. And it is Professor Sri Lankan National Treasure, almost, who has received this award among thousands of US university professors. So without further ado, today Professor Premadasa will be telling you more about growth mindset, and he will try to emphasize the aspects applicable to the workplace. He will try to also emphasize how this growth mindset has played a major role in building up what we know today as Silicon Valley. And also, he will also mention what are his other speaking engagements while in Sri Lanka. So be sure not to miss those as well, because clearly there is a lot of value here. Professor Premadasa, please take the floor, and please greet him with a line of applause.
Thank you. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Big crowd, and then some of you are IT professionals, some of you are IT professionals who are my former students. Some of you came to listen to growth mindset. Some of you just came to see me, I think, right? But still, right, I'm a very proud Sri Lankan American, right? And one of the things, I actually came here for something else. I mean, I came as a Fulbright specialist, which, if I can explain, Fulbright, you know what Fulbright scholar is, right? So scholar is somebody in Sri Lanka is given an opportunity to study in the United States. Fulbright specialist is the opposite. You give an American a chance to come and do a project in Sri Lanka. So I'm here in that capacity. So what I was trying to do is that I was trying to get the University of Sri Jayawardena for the students and the industry to solve problems live using Twitter, because I did considerable amount of research using instructional technology and social media for education. So the thing is, I'm not going to scare you. I'm not going to teach a word of mathematics, right? So because I'm here as an educator. So let me first tell how I got into this. So Emma mentioned this award that I got, the statewide award. And the only way that you can get an award is that you need to make a significant contribution to the education of the state as a whole, not just in one area, not just in mathematics or anything. So one of the things I actually did was, in several universities, I started this thing called reading circles. So what you do is we select a book on education or something, and we ask all the professors in the university, not all, we ask everybody, not everybody joins, right? Okay, but some of them will join, and then we do a common reading. So we read the book together and we have a discussion. We eat some samosas and some nice food, and we discuss the problem, but that's not the end of it. We can't get away from that. We need to implement that in our classroom at some point. So about 3 years or 4 years ago, we encountered this book by Professor Carol Dweck on mindset. And then I selected this book, and everybody told it's a great book, let's read it. And after we read it, we found that this is really something which is very strange, because we find it, I found it even using that in my own home, to my own life. And then next year I actually did some interventions using that in my classroom, which turned out to be very, very successful. Students were changing. When you were just looking at it, you could see the students who hated mathematics suddenly becoming inspired learners. And then I learned that I considered myself I thought I was good at certain things, but I thought I was very bad at certain things. And one of the things that I thought I was very bad, and I'm pretty sure I'm still not very good, is drawing. right? So whenever somebody would tell me something to draw, I would just, oh, no, that's totally not me. And I had to go and, oh, gee. So I finally got caught because my 5-year-old daughter will not let me go. She first asked me to draw a duck, and which I drew using YouTube, right? And then she asked me to draw a dolphin. Then suddenly I decided to use growth mindset. And 5 days later, my wife just asked me, "Did you draw this using YouTube?" I said, "No, some other animal, I can't remember." That was pretty good. So that means it did work to some extent, at least for me. So this is something which, and then I was surprised when I came here that lot of people doesn't seem to know about this. And I thought it was a shame that I should talk about it. And in spite of my other project, which I am sponsored by the State Department, I thought, hey, you know what? Now that I'm here, let me just talk about it. And then I know after doing that, that this is not just for education. It's used for any professional scenario. And I found that most of the Silicon Valley companies gain from this. IT professionals, recruiters gain from this heavily, and it's becoming and to finally say, just before I start, 98% of the school teachers in the United States, where almost every school now adopts growth mindset as part of their curriculum, told that it benefited students. So 98% is a huge amount of a country where people are not scared to tell what they feel. So if they felt that it didn't help, they would just say, no, it didn't help. So this was the best. So with that, thank you very much for coming here after work, right? So let me just, I'll try to do justice for Emma's introduction, right? So this is who I am, and then, so this is the person who started this all. 7 years ago, this is Carol Dweck, professor of psychology at Stanford. And she started, the mindset research has been going for a while, but it was Professor Dweck who actually started working and doing experiments on this. Massive experiments using probably Stanford's large reputation as a professor, right, and a big-time player. The final result, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, now Stanford takes 8% of their students, not from grades. So you can see how things are changing, okay? But let's get on to that later. So this is Carol Dweck, right? And so what is the concept of growth mindset? Very simply, right? When you are 15 and 16 years old, if you don't have good muscles, right, then you have a problem. Why? Especially the guys, right? I don't want to be gendered here, right? Okay, you don't have a problem because you feel that, yeah, this is not good. Because no girls are not going to look at me. This is going to be a really bad situation if you don't have muscles. Then what do? You do all kinds of crazy things, right? Not really crazy, but you do weights and you do bar exercises, right? Because the underlying principle is what? Your brain, your muscles can be trained by exercises, by weightlifting, and by hard work, right? You believe that. And if you are large and heavy, you start running. Why? Because you feel that your stomach can be toned by running, right? But what about your brain? Now, what did I think? I thought that I was bad at art, right? And I thought, oh, just bad luck, guys. I was born with bad art skills. No, dude, you're gone. There's no way you're going to increase your art skills. And then some of us believe that we are not that intelligent or we are not that smart, right, to start. And some of us feel that we are very smart. Research has found that both cases are not very good. If you think that you are not that smart, or if you're very smart. So with brain and talents, we think we are born with them. Do you see what I'm trying to say? That not like muscles and your tummy. We can't do much about it. But growth mindset says that if you have proper learning, strategy, and mentoring, and the correct attitude, right, you can increase your brain and your talent. Now, a lot of people like self-help gurus come and tell that and charm the audience, and you go away and feeling good. You are not even sure whether it works. But this has been comprehensively proved through research with peer-reviewed articles and statistical analysis that it really works. That's the difference. That's what makes it different. Okay? And can you show how that, just questions, how do this work? So I think the best way to show how this works is that if you take any learning environment, whether it's school or college or an organization or basketball or what, taxi driving or name it, anything, right? Any learning environment, there are three aspects. First of all, what is your goal? What is the whole goal of the whole learning environment thing? And the second one is what? What the effort that you want to put into that. So goal, effort, and what's the third one? How do you react to setbacks? So let's look at how these two mindsets. What are the two mindsets? Growth and fixed. So by the way, I didn't really tell you what fixed is. Fixed is means you believe that your brain and your skills are fixed at birth, that they cannot be changed. How they react to these three environments. So let's take the first one, which is goal. If you really think carefully, if you have a fixed mindset, right? Like when my daughter asked me to draw the duck, what was my goal? To get out without looking stupid, right? To survive without looking stupid. Right? And then on the other extreme, when right after my PhD, I came to Sri Lanka, and everybody asked me to come for dinner, right? And then because you know why? Because I go to a dinner and everybody, oh, you have a PhD in mathematics, and they give me these problems. Now there is a cow and a tiger and a grass. They're trying to cross a river. Now remember, the cow and the grass cannot cross the river. The tiger and the you know the story, right? And they want me to solve it. And everybody is looking at me. Now let's see the Purdue Math PhD. Let's see how he solves this problem. And I was terrified. Why? Because my mother is watching, my father is watching, everybody is watching. I have a PhD in mathematics. So what is my goal, guys? Is it to solve that beautiful problem? I'm sure it's a beautiful problem. No. My solve is to get out of there without looking stupid. So the growth mindset, the change is that and then what happens invariably is that I would screw up. I would be so terrified that I would not be able to solve it, and then say, I'm hungry or something, let's have dinner or something. On my way back, I would remember, wow, I can do this very easily. Why didn't that kick in? Because my goal was not learning. On the way back in the car, I thought about the problem, and then my goal was learning. And then I was able to solve it very quickly. But at that point, my goal was not, and so that's number one. Number two is that, sometimes when you do a skill, right, if you put a certain amount of effort to a task, and if you want to put a lot of effort to that task, then you think that you are not good at it. Like, for example, I'm not very good at mechanical things like fixing things in your home or something. If a faucet is broken, you want to fix it. It takes a long time for me to fix the faucet, and I think it is taking a long time. That means I'm not good at engineering thing. But you have to understand, guys. Even Einstein and Elvis Presley and all these people, right, who had achieved something in life, put a lot of effort. So effort is part of the process. Just because you put lot of effort doesn't mean that you are not good at it. So second thing is effort. Third thing is how to react to setbacks. So if I fail at something, right, if I have a fixed mindset, right, if I fail at something, then invariably what happens is I feel that I am a failure, right, my mindset, and I avoid these things. But if you have a growth mindset, what you do is you react to failure as a way of learning and correcting your mistakes and moving on. So now if somebody blasts you, now there are so many CEOs here, right? If your company boss, if you are a software engineer, if your company boss comes and I'm going to dangerous area because one of your owners are my good friends. So if they blast you, so Damita, tell me, right? If somebody blasts, you get blasted by you, right? What do you think? I am being humiliated, right? I think I'm a good software engineer, but do we actually listen to what this guy is saying? Well, he may be humiliating you, that's a different story. But he is trying to tell you something. But if you actually try to let your mind allow the brain to work on what is actually being at stake. Research has shown, now this is medical biological research, your brain, there's a part in your brain which reacts to mistakes that performs much better. The neuron starts firing, right, when you look at the mistakes and admit them. And then try to correct it and then move forward. So three areas. So this is how, but a fixed mindset person will say, I am being attacked, that's it, this is a bad thing, this is a setback. So can you see how this fixed and growth mindset attacks on these three areas? So goal, fixed mindset is about looking good. Growth mindset is learning. Attempt for fixed mindset, larger attempt means this, I'm not good for this. But a growth mindset means attempt is part of the game. Setbacks, right? You allow your brain to react much better when you admit your thing. Okay, so what happens now? So this is what I just told you. So now, does it really work? Am I just talking like an evangelist? Well, sometimes they say that I do talk like an evangelist, but does it really work? Right? Because the thing about it, I can tell you things and you might actually believe that because I have a PhD and go home and then, but it might be all wrong. But there is conclusive research done. So this is a scholarly presentation. I'm just showing you research, that's all. And if you want to check, just Google any of these links, right? And you will find this research and how exactly it was done, how the control experiments were set up, and it proves beyond certain doubt. Okay, so this is the very first research. So Professor Dweck and a partner, so Lisa Blackwell and Carly Zelensky and Professor Dweck did this study. This is a landmark study. This is always regarded as the landmark pioneering study. I want to explain it a little bit. What they did was, they actually they selected 7th grade students in the United States in a school. 7th graders, what they did was, they actually broke the student into 2 groups. Okay, so 7th grade, then groups they got, right? So for one group, they gave 8 sessions on study skills. We don't teach students how to study, how to do homework, how to manage your time. In the United States, we do have these sessions on study skills, right? So for one group, they did just 8 sessions on study skills, how to do your homework, how to prepare for exams, right? Okay, how to stop watching Facebook all the time. No, now they do that too, yeah. Okay, now for the other group, what they did was, they did the study skills as well as they gave a training on growth mindset. Okay, so one group only study skills, other group study skills. And then after 8 sessions, they stopped it. Okay, that's done. All over. Then they looked at something completely different. They looked at their math scores. Now remember, they were not given an intervention for mathematics. No intervention for mathematics. They checked their math scores for the next 3 years. And this is what they found. The growth mindset students, scores were going up and up and up. Who were just getting, you were getting the growth mindset plus the study skills, and the other group was going down. And then what they did was, they found something even more amazing. They found that they took another bunch of teachers and told them, okay, these students have been given to these 2 groups, right? But can you tell which group a certain student belonged to? And they were able to tell. So that's a fascinating research, because the intervention was not on math. It was on the mindset. And so this is and this is even more impressive. So that was 7th grade. This was for high schools. What they did was, they selected 13 high schools in the United States, and they did a project for just 3 months. So they selected some of the students who were underperforming and who had poor academic achievement, and they actually did a 3-month course where what they did was, they gave 2 sessions online, not even face to face. So really, I don't have to look like it will be a nice talker or a motivational self-help guru to do this, right? All you need is to change your mindset, right? Okay, 2 online courses, right? And you can see after 3 months how their GPA changed. Just 3 months. Okay, so I'm just going to give those 2. There are plenty of, if you go to Google Scholar and put growth mindset, you will now see research from all over the world. But one nice thing is that sometimes the research is there's another professor here, I think her name was Stephanie somebody. So she was a Native American, right? And she tried to implement a growth mindset in her community, but it didn't work. And then Professor Dweck, she talked to Professor Dweck, and they tried it using the native environment, native examples, to introduce growth mindset, and then it started working. So sometimes you need to tweak it to the culture. For example, you're going to do it for Sri Lankan culture, you might have to tweak it a little bit, right? Okay, but So can you share some success stories with organizations? I was told by some people, right? Okay, that this is a tech company, right? And then if you want to really get your techies interested in this, you need to actually bring in some other top tech companies and to see a different type of applications, right? Okay, not really. This is, and then one of the things we found that during our research is that this can be applied for any domain. It was applied for taxi drivers in the UK. Do you know that in UK they have two different types? They have this black cab, the famous black cab, and they also have the bus, right? They did an experiment on one hand how they were trying to, the people who were getting the license for buses versus the license for cab drivers. What's the difference? The bus only goes on certain routes. The cab is all over. The struggle, the tenacity, and the wider picture is bigger in the cabs, right? And they measure the growth mindset of two, and they really found. Okay, so look at some organizations. Let's start with so this was a study actually done by Sean Delaney, which is a company actually who does research in education, right? And it was done by Stanford psychology professor again Cal Dweck and her colleagues Mary Murphy, Jennifer Chapman, and Laura Cray. And then what they did was they took 7 Fortune 1000 companies, and they found that some companies have what is known as a culture of development. That means they encourage risks, they encourage innovation, they encourage a growth mindset in the company. And then there are the other companies which have a culture of genius, right? I mean, oh, this person is very smart in our company, this person is not very smart, he's very talented, he's not very talented. The culture of genius, which is more like a fixed mindset. And they compared these two companies and find out how it affects on certain aspects: collaboration, innovation, creativity, risk-taking, and ethical behavior. And you know what they found? They found that there is significant improvement in companies which have a growth mindset environment in all of the above categories. Let me show you some actual figures. This study can be again downloaded from this site, right? And this is a landmark study. And now, you know what they found? Take risk-taking. They found that growth mindset companies are 65% likelier, okay? It's not an absolute, it's more likely, 65% more likely than fixed mindset companies to do that. And innovation, again, they were 49% more likelier to do that. And trustworthiness, that means their colleagues are trustworthy, right? They found it to be 47%. And the last one, you know, they found that they have a sense of ownership in the company, right? And they found 35% likelier than fixed mindset to do that. This was a stunning study actually in all 4 aspects. The companies which harbored a growth mindset management structure achieved much better than the other companies, and these are Fortune 1000 companies. Now here is something else which you know the Microsoft CEO, right? Satya, and then he's a celebrity, he's great, absolutely. But you know, I mata them pudi point එකක් දාන්න පුළුවන් මේ වෙලාවේ. මොකද මටත් growth mindset අනුගත. I recognize growth mindset very close to the same manner that Satya did. But slight difference. One day, you know, he took over Microsoft the last 4 years, right? And the value of the company has tripled. Do you know that, right? Even the last 4 years, and it is going. I think it's going to become the first $1 trillion company in the world, right? And he wrote a book called Refresh. Have you heard about this book? About the success story, right? How we actually turned this company to be such a value. And in that book, he explains something what happens. Satya's wife has given him a copy of what book? Carol Dweck's Mindset book. That's why I say it kind of started like somebody gave me a copy and said, this is how you start, but that's how it also ends, right? I'm nobody and Satya is somebody, right? Okay, but the thing is, right? Okay, this is how you start. And then he started reading the book just like the way we all did. And then what he did was he actually started applying these things in his company. And I will mention just 2 things. And this is an interview. The audio quality is not bad because I had to grab the recording. But this is actually an interview which is done by Greg Shaw and Jill Tracy Nichols. And those are 2 people who had been through 3 CEOs at Microsoft. So they have seen the change. So now you can see the interviewer actually asks Greg and Jill, a question. Let's see what the question she's asking.
Outside, it looks like Satya's orchestrated a shift to a growth mindset as a culture. Is that a fair observation?
It is. We've used the term growth mindset based off the book by Carol Dweck, Mindset, that first was given to Satya by his wife, actually. And that definitely influenced his thinking on where we needed to take the company. But it's also very reflective, I'd say, of who he is. He speaks all the time about his hunger for learning, his thirst for knowledge. And when we looked at the company's culture, we did this exercise of trying to understand, where are we today and where do we want to go? And the phrase that typified it all was, today we're a bunch of know-it-alls, and how do we transform to be a group who wants to learn it all? And that growth mindset really typified that transformation and helped shape not only the words and the communications around the culture, but actually things that are getting done in the company and new initiatives. So I think it was one of those moments that the company got it right of balancing not just what we say, but what we do together.
So did you hear what he said? So Microsoft, right, initially thought it was the biggest company, right? We know it all, and then it transferred it to what? Learn it all. So what he did, one of the things that he thought to make Microsoft accessible, he should bring in accessibility. And actually it goes on like that. I can't show you the whole thing. It actually tells you, but can you see the paradigm shift from know it all to learn it all? Once again, you go back to the original goal of learning. Learning is key. It's rather than the talent that we have. And now in the second audio actually tells about a nice little another intervention that he did at Microsoft.
Outside, it looks like Satya's orchestrated a shift to a growth mindset as a culture.
Same click is going. I hope I get.
From a communication standpoint, Satya has been very thoughtful about how he reinforces these themes in what he says over and over and over again, which I think is the key for any leader. And one of the things he does is he said, everybody's got to have a growth mindset, including me. And about every month, he records a video of all the things he learned that month, that he learned from reading, from a customer, from an employee. Sometimes they're humorous, sometimes they're fairly deep. But it's just a way for him to model it. And I think that's a really important lesson for any leader of if you're telling your employees or your students to have something or to do something, how do you model that yourself? And he's done a really, really great job in doing that.
So once again, what he did was, he didn't just say everybody, your company should go for growth mindset. He believed in and he did it himself. So this monthly video that he posted was not about tech stuff. The learning in general, that is a very important difference, because sometimes when we teach growth mindset, people think it's about try again, right? It's not that. It's now, for example, if you are studying for like exam and you are A-level, and if you're stuck with a problem, your mother might say, try. It might work, but it might also backfire very badly, because your goal is not learning. Your goal is to get through that exam or whatever. So in this case, Satya's monthly videos were about everything. He would talk to like people on the street, his customers, janitors, various people, and he would look around and look at the world, and he would learn things by reading books, and he would tell his company everything that he learned once a month. Okay, so so that's a very interesting study by Microsoft's. They are not studied, but direct. So another one is this famous Google's Orange study, right? Okay, project. Have you guys heard about Orange project? So what they did was they tried to find the 8 best attributes of the CEOs in a number of companies. Okay, and what they did was they surveyed over 10,000 people about their CEOs by 10,000 managers, over 10,000 managers about the CEOs on things like awards and excellence and retain, how the turn off and turn around in the company and things like that. So they did a massive project, and what Google did was this. You can actually Google. It's kind of funny when you say you can Google. You have to be careful, because if you say Google Orange project, right? It will tell you oranges because it doesn't know whether you're talking about Google's orange project or you want just oranges, right? Okay, so you can just put in a couple of names here and then, so say CEOs, attributes of CEOs, and then what Google did was they implemented in their own organization for managers 6 attributes. And the very first attribute was to create a growth mindset, actually, right? And the other 5 attributes are emotional intelligence, manager transition, coaching, feedback, and decision making. You can look it up online, right? And you can find details about this. But again, the very first attribute, they want their company to adopt growth mindset as their thing. And I will do one more case, right? I don't want to keep you here forever, right? And this is a very interesting little thing, right? So there was a recent a consortium where LinkedIn CEO Jeff Weiner, right? And LinkedIn is very well known for its hiring. So this is a good lesson for anybody who is on hiring here, right? And also it's a good lesson for software engineers, right, who are working their way forward, right? And he did something very, very interesting. We'll listen to this later on, but let's read that. So rather than hire for grades, this is changing now big time in the US, the possibility of hiring for grades. Look for passion and fire. How do you distinguish between passion and fire? Right? Fire actually, today, I mean, I saw actually in the morning I got up, I went to Facebook, and I saw a video of a daughter of a person here, I won't mention the name, right? And she was playing the piano with fire. What do you mean by fire? What's the difference between passion and fire? Passion is your lifelong dedication for something, right? I have a passion for playing the piano. But when you play the piano with fire, you are energized. You're motivated. You play with the dedication, right? And a lot of heat, right, at that moment. And then fire. Let's do one word at a time. Greater work ethic. Greater work ethic is that you do your job, your commitment. You do the job that you are entrusted with, and you go even more than that, right? I mean, it's not. I mean, your paycheck may be low, right, or your paycheck may be high, but at that very moment when you're doing something, concentrate and deliver the job. Doesn't matter where you stand. What is the difference between perseverance and passion and fire? Does anybody know perseverance? Perseverance is that I may play the piano with fire today. Tomorrow I might say, but you still play the piano, right? Third day you really don't feel like doing anything, but you still play the piano. That ability to go across the border, with or without the fire, that is perseverance. And then perseverance, loyalty, and loyalty is you back your organization when you're working there with everything you got, right? And a growth mindset actually combines everything. That you are not scared to take risks. Why? Because you're not scared of failure. Remember the third one? And you are not scared of failure because your final goal is to learn something from this. And you're willing to put an effort. And this is interesting something. These are qualities that have a tendency to be completely overlooked when people are sifting through resumes or LinkedIn profiles. Now remember who is telling this? LinkedIn CEO is telling this. That when you go to LinkedIn profiles, right, and see, you are not going to pick those things up, right? That is something else. And they have found that those are the people who make the difference organization. So I thought, let's listen to him. Now something went wrong. The guy, no, it's actually going to a website.
For being a great leader there, appreciate it.
And thank you for making that kind of talent
This is the
available
LinkedIn
to
CEO,
us. You see that kind of response, and that's the energy that some of the year up graduates bring to us. And we have the privilege of working with some other amazing programs, Management Leaders for Tomorrow by way of example. And when you see that kind of passion and fire in the belly, when you see that kind of work ethic, what's not captured there is the growth mindset and the perseverance, the loyalty. These are qualities that you don't necessarily pick up from a degree. There are qualities, non-cognitive skills sometimes, that have a tendency to be completely overlooked when people are sifting through resumes or LinkedIn profiles. And yet, increasingly, we find that these are the kinds of people that make the biggest difference within our organization. And one of the things we're dedicated to right now is trying to figure out a way to scale that. And working with organizations like EverFi, working with organizations like...
So finally, some things that some companies are doing to embrace growth mindset, right? And I just leave it for a little bit here, right? And finally, we come back to where we started. So what do you think, guys? So it looks to us that these examples show, I have only time for a very few examples, but growth mindset seems to be affecting the Silicon Valley companies big time. The recruitment, their growth, their turnaround, I mean, the way they are happening, the whole attitude is changing from a grades and skills approach to a mindset approach. This is what is happening all over the world now. It's time that we look at it and we study it and we embrace it, okay, if we want to, right, okay? But this is what is happening on the world. So let me just finish my interview, my presentation with an interview with Carol Dweck, again, PhD professor of psychology, Stanford University, a very short 1-minute thing where she talks about Silicon Valley.
The Silicon Valley founders are not afraid to fail. That is a key characteristic of the growth mindset. In fact, they say that when they fail, they're learning to succeed. They're gaining the experience that they need for their ultimate success. In a fixed mindset, failure means you're not a genius. Failure means there's something wrong with you. It's humiliating. It's to be swept aside as soon as possible. That attitude really curtails your success in the long run.
That's all. So I have only about how long did I take? About 50 minutes, maybe. Okay, yeah, because I'm 45 minutes. That is because in the United States we are used to 50-minute lectures, because the students' attention span is only for 20 minutes. So we try to stretch it for 40 minutes, and then, but we always reserve the last 10 minutes for questions. So I wanted to give you guys a chance to answer some questions and to finish. And so can I have some people? Yeah, and Emma would be willing to go around.
Hi, what are the attributes? How do you differentiate between the fine mindset and the growth mindset?
Growth mindset and what?
Fixed mindset.
The fixed mindset.
Yeah. How do you differentiate?
Yeah, the actual in operation, right?
Yeah.
So here is. Can I give you some tips that that you can do at home, right? I mean, when you go home today, right? I mean, how is the best thing is to look at yourself. What do I do, right? That are fixed mindset things, right? For example, suppose my daughter comes up to me and say there's a picnic and we want to play softball or baseball. So what's the first thing I do? What's the first thing that I say? I don't know how to play baseball. What did I just make? I made a fixed mindset statement. Never say that to your child, in front of your child, because you know why? Because child will take that from you. So what's the best way of putting that in a growth mindset thing? Well, I have not played baseball, but let's watch some YouTube videos and let's learn the strategy of playing football, right? I mean, do you see the difference, right? So that's how I would change. So I would look at my own questions, right? And when I'm praising my child, once again, don't praise my child and say, you are a very smart child, but say, if you struggle through a problem, that's a great struggle. That's a great strategy. And so there are words that you use that in everyday life, right? So if you say that when you're going for a company interview, if somebody asks you for the requirement of the job, how many of the skills that you have for the job, Instead of saying that I have 80% or 90%, in US, all the engineers say that they have 100%. So I mean, without saying that, right, the number, say that, hey, you know what, I think I have the background for this, right, but I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to learn the skill. So you can see, the biggest way is when people talk about their mistakes. If when you know, in company interview questions, they ask you, can you name the biggest setback you have? Now when you do that, if somebody is just trying to push it to somebody, then that is a fixed mindset. But if something that I made that setback, but I learned from that. So there are ways that you can distinguish the two mindsets when people are talking to you. Your people who are under your recruitment, your people who are under you, right? People you are recruiting, or you know, people you are at work, or so. And when you talk, when you yourself talk, so always tell something that I don't know how to cook dal, but instead that maybe I should try to watch mom how she does it, and maybe I can learn from that. Put a strategy. Always put the strategy forward. Okay? Does that answer your question a little bit, right? Yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name is Shazmin, and I've often been told you should actually like reward failure. How would you really go about doing that in a team?
Yeah, I mean, the way the reward failure is, if you just say, oh, it's okay to, you know, to error is human, forgiveness is divine, then that's not growth mindset. Growth mindset is all about learning, but with strategy. So what I would do is, when one of my students do it, right? For example, there are mathematics. I'll show you a small activity, because I'm a mathematician, right? I mean, after all. So I hit this slide. This is actually a slide. This is an activity that we give our students, right? In mathematics, a very simple activity for students who are scared of algebra. America godak inna lamai algebra kom pana bayai. X kiwama me hitanne ara ex-wife, ex-girlfriend. I'm just kidding, right? Okay, so X kiwama hodaram bayai. Not but here is something that we do. This is called the famous volcano activity. What we have to do is, we give these three figures to our students and ask them how many blocks will be there on the fourth figure. How many? One. So this one is 1, 2, 3, 4. This one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's growing, but is there a pattern? Can anybody tell me how many are there in the next one? No, that's not how we ask the question. Our fixed mindset gala panti islam in vedakarinne ඌ තමයි හරිද කරදන අනිත් එක්ක පිටිපස්සේ මින් එක්කා කියනවා ඌ කියාගත්තා මට ප්‍රශ්න නැහැ. But what we do is, we ask everybody to come up. The answer to the question is the strategy, because the first person will anyway give the answer and then give the answer, right? The others we say, well, can somebody come up with a strategy for a different strategy? දැන් බලන්න ඔයගොල්ලෝ බලන්න මේකදී එක එක strategies තියෙන මේක උත්තරේ ගන්න. දැන් සමහරවන්ට හිතනවා මේක volcano එකක් වගේ කියලා. මෙයා volcano එකක් උඩ යනකොට lava වැටෙනවා වගේ දෙපැත්තට. That's how it got the name volcano strategy. තව එකෙක් ඉඳගෙන මිනිහා කරේ මේ he actually put this and අනිත් පැත්ත හරවලා ඒක උඩින්ම තියලා cube back හැදුවා. එමත් කරන්න පුළුවන් නෝන, right? You can turn it into a cube, like a square. Like a square එකක් කරන්න පුළුවන් නෝන අනිත් පැත්ත හරවලා. It's very unique strategy. So we encourage the student to come up with a strategy, and then 10 different students came up with 10 different strategies. Then they go home thinking, not the pora in the class, but I also came up with my own strategy. My strategy is better than the others. Can you imagine the energy of the class? There are no losers. So the answer to the question is, ask the person to come up with a strategy. Right? I mean, strategy, concentrate on the strategy. If something is not working, go Google CEO, the first person who ran Google, the founder of the company, was trying to sell a product, and he couldn't sell it to anybody because nobody was buying his product. And then he tried to form his own company. So come up with a strategy, and now you know where that company is, right? Come up with a strategy. Concentrate. To make a mistake and a setback is fine, but let's come back and learn from the mistake and come back with a strategy. That's it's what we do in the math class, but I'm sure the IT managers and CEOs will think that that is the way out, right? Okay. Any other questions? Great questions. Very good.
Any other questions?
Please. Yes, please. There's a lady. What's your name, ma'am? Yeah.
Hi, I am Priyanti.
Uh-huh.
I'm one of your students in the University of Colombo.
Thank you. See, I told you they came to see me. I'm just kidding.
Yes,
Thank you very much for coming. Yes.
The question is like, let's say someone is fixed in a fixed mindset for such a long time. How can you get them to a growth mindset?
Yes, I mean, the thing is now, see, you can't. I think the whole idea is now, if you take me, I have a fixed mindset still for a lot of things, right? I'm slowly coming out in certain skills, like for example, handiwork, right, or drawing, right, and because and certain areas I'm still, right, pretty much fixed. So what you can do is, I mean, you can't change just, oh, yesterday I was I'm fixed mindset person, now I am a growth mindset person, hey, wow, look at me, right? No, you can't do that, because it is something which needs, there are activities, right? So for kids, what we do, your question I think is, how do we do that, right? Yes, that's right, yeah. So the way is, there are tips, like some of the tips that I told you, those are home tips or home remedies, okay? But for actual things, right, there are activities that we do, right, like workshops and sessions, where we tell a story. Let me tell you one of the stories that Stanford University has collaborated with an educational organization, and they came up with 5 videos, right, which has to be purchased. But a videos, it's a story like this. So there's a cartoon character. He likes math. So one day he gets stuck. He gets really stuck. I mean, he tries this, that, and then he is drunk and he gets fed up and he feels that I'm a loser, complete loser. You have seen these ancient Sri Lankan books? Okay, I'm done. I can't do this, right? I'm a loser, right? And then what happens is, he meets another girl, another cartoon character, who tells him, no, believe in the growth mindset. Your brain is like a muscle. You can do this. Now what happens? He goes to the other extreme. I can do anything, right? And then when he goes home, he sees there is a robotics competition somewhere. And he says, I can win the first place of this competition. And he goes home and tries to build a robot. He works until 1 o'clock in the morning, right? And oh boy, right? And then it doesn't work, right? So he gets even more frustrated. So what happens is, after each video, we give the students an activity to find out what's going on here. So it's like something that through these activities, you get the students to understand the big picture, what a growth mindset is. And then you ask the students to simulate, right, what I should do. Imagine a situation where I'm not good at. Now, use growth mindset and see how you can come back with tenacity to face that situation. And so there are exercises, like if you take anything else, like playing the piano or meditation or anything, there are exercises that you need to get into the mindset, and then you will change slowly. And if you don't believe me, try it yourself. Think of an activity that you are really bad at, right? And next time when you are saying that, slowly find an excuse, I'm getting late, I need to go. I have a meeting in 5 minutes, right? Just try to see, what does it matter? Right? Everybody had made, Silicon Valley people made thousands of mistakes before they got it right. Let's try to find a strategy, right? Strategy, not just try, but strategy. And maybe I learned something from every mistake I made. It does work. Try it yourself, and you will see. Does that kind of answer you? So it's a matter of, if you have a child, right? So check online, and there are activities that you can do, right? That the parents can do with the child, right? Like read an article. So get the child to read an article about growth mindset, right? And then there are activities with that article that the parent and the child can discuss, and get the child to do so it doesn't have to be in school, right? It can be done at home. There are workshops for parents only, where the parents actually get a chance to perform these activities, So the complete picture is a slow process. It's not a really slow process, but it's an activity-based process. But the short answer is that you can actually start at home by placing the effort and the strategy rather than the brain and the skill. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Uh-huh. Right.
In a team, we have, let's say,
Not for a friend. I was talking that you were meaning. Yeah.
no, in a working environment where, let's say, we have a team where like a couple of people are very, with a fixed mindset for years.
Right.
And for us to evolve, they also have to adopt the growth mindset.
Yeah.
So how can we get them?
It cannot be done instantly. Again, the company culture has to change, starting from the manager downwards, right? But what I can give you a short answer. There are resources out there. For example, Google, the Go Orange study, it has shared its resources with the general public. So if you leave your email number with me, I can actually send you a link to that, right? So that you can actually then tell some of the techniques that they do it in the work area to get that thing. But the best way out is that what these companies are doing is they're actually getting people to perform professional sessions where not like a growth mindset certification, but it's like you're trying to convert your company into a growth mindset. It's a process where the whole company, CEO downwards, has to join, like what Satya did. Yeah.
Any other questions? Please raise your. Here
Sure,
we go.
yeah.
We have two here.
Good. Yeah.
Hello, sir. I'm Minura. First of all, thank you for that amazing lecture.
Thank you.
I'm still a student, so my question is in relation to perseverance that you spoke of, and also maybe education related to an extent. I just want to know, this question would not have a right answer. It's very dynamic, and your
Sure,
perspective
yeah.
would count.
Yeah.
How do you persevere in most situations, and in terms of compartmentalizing yourself and not being affected by other externalities? I just want to know your perspective on how
Yeah,
you would approach that.
here is the thing, right? Yeah, the question is how do you pursue? The perseverance comes when there are so many other external activities. So let me give you one. Now we live in a culture, right? Where everything is highly grade based. For example, you will listen to this lecture and then you will go home and tell, well, at the end of the day, it's all very nice for this guy to say he has finished his PhD and professor and whatnot, right? But I'm trying to get into medical school. And as far as I know, you need 3 years, even more, even 3 years is not enough, right? Okay, to get into medical school. You need grades. So what is this guy talking? Is it absolute crap, right? There was a study done in the United States where it is something, can I give you like a simple example? Have you, when you can't sleep at night, what happens if you try to sleep? It becomes worse, right? Have you ever done that? That's the worst thing that you can possibly do when you can't sleep at night is to try and sleep. You will not sleep the whole night, right? Okay, but if you just concentrate, if you relax yourself, it sleeps. So there was this study done for preschool. So you know what a pre-med is in the United States? If you want to go to medical school, you need to finish another degree. That degree is called a pre-med degree, and pre-med degrees, they usually require a 4.0 GPA. That means every course that you do, you need to get an A. It's that tough. So they did a growth mindset study on some pre-med students, and then they knew that they had to get the grade. They had to get an A for every class. But what they did was, in spite of that, they were telling students, concentrate on the strategy, concentrate on the learning, right? And then the grade, if you do that, the grades will come. It's very difficult to believe. It's like the sleep. If you relax, the sleep will come, right? But it does happen, right? So in this case, if you concentrate on the learning part, right, the grades will come. I'll tell you another example. Have you guys heard about the International Mathematical Olympiad? It's like the biggest gathering of geeks in the world. Right? The Americans say that, please don't tell me where it is because I want us to stay far away from that, right? No, just kidding. Okay, so the last 2 years, before the last 2 years, the United States Math Olympiad team never won the first place. Okay, they always came like 3 or 4, and I think it is China or Russia. I think they've always been in the first place. The last 2 years consecutively, the United States team won the first place. And they asked, what did you change? What did you change? Well, it's very interesting because the coach of the team actually from Wisconsin, right? And he changed the strategy completely. What he did was this. He said, initially, because the Chinese and the Russian teams, they trained the students on problems. Problem solving, techniques on problem solving. But what they did here was, rather than train the students on problem, he got the team to introduce the beauty of math, the new concepts, the world of mathematics, the bigger patterns, the bigger networks, the bigger connections of mathematics. Then everybody was asking, don't we have to solve the problems too? Yes, but the outlook was now changed. The outlook was on learning. So you are asked the question about being I mean, you are in a compartmentalized with external forces, right? In spite of those external forces, you need to get a gold medal, right? Okay, but beauty. This is a subject. This is learning. This is beautiful. Math is beautiful once you start exploring it. But if you just sit around doing problems, it can get a little heavy, right? But so what happened was he changed the complete outlook of the team, and in the last 2 years, the United States became #1 team in the Math Olympiad. That was his secret, right? So what my advice to do is that you can't change those external forces. There they are. Admit them. The grades and the pressure, and everybody wants you to do well, right? But in spite of that, think that, when you do a task, when you do a problem, when you do answer a question, think, hey, you know what? I'm learning. This is it doesn't matter, right? If I make a mistake, and then try to get that. It's a very difficult. Even Carol Dweck says, in this environment, how difficult it is to develop a growth environment in a setup like where grades are expected and specific skill sets are accepted, right? But it is still worth doing because the results are shown. Does that kind of answers your question a little bit? Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. Yes.
Hi, I'm Janaka. This is more of a sharing an experience than a question.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, I love this.
I worked once with some Indian developers, so they were very reluctant to do some mistakes. So when I later found out that they had been penalized when they did mistakes, so as a result, it was very difficult for us to teach something. So what I realized through that was, if they had a culture where the mistakes are not penalized, I think that would be the base for someone to move into the growth mindset.
Yep. I think that is true. That is true. But according to what's your name again? Jasmine is Jasmine, right? Okay. And so again, thank you. The same thing. Without penalizing for the mistake, what is expected is strategy and innovation. Come back and tell how you are going to correct it with an innovative mind. And then you start doing that, the brain starts firing. Your networks. Actually, can I have like 1 minute? I have another presentation in which I think I have. This is actually, they have actually measured I'm not a medical person, the electricity in the brain in the area which is reserved for making mistakes. Okay? And you can see when you have a growth mindset, right, and you admit the mistake, but not just admit the mistake and go home, but you come up with a strategy and try to find the way out and come back, right? Your neuron starts firing, and electricity here is much bigger in the growth mindset brain than a fixed mindset where you come, oh, I'm a failure, I'm a mistake. So it's a coming back part which is key, and you are right. Then when you penalize and you are scared of making that mistake, then it's like everybody's trying to find a mistake to get out. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Are there any other
This is a very robust Sharon, yes. Please. I love these questions. Yeah.
So my question really is, so you make this definition about a fixed mindset and a growth mindset.
Right.
And everybody is on a spectrum somewhere.
Right.
And we oscillate from being in a fixed mindset, going to a growth mindset, and maybe backward.
Right.
From an organization culture perspective, I know you spoke about strategy as a way of measuring it and also developing a growth mindset. Are there any other best practices or what we need to do?
Yeah, I can tell you some things offhand. For example, I told you these tips for interviewing, right? I mean, that's one thing, right? I mean, that they say that the interview questions should be formed so that when you ask about, rather when you ask what percentage of the skill set do you have, right? Then look for the answer. And then when you are asking about, I mean, the mistakes, that's a very crucial place. If when you ask about the mistakes or setbacks in a previous time, see how that person is reacting. So there are, so whether you are trying to push it to somebody else or whether you are trying to admit the mistake and then try to carry on, and then try to see whether there's a I versus we, just try to see whether the person is always talking about I did that, or whether it's we did that, right? And so there are a bunch of strategies. So the best way for you to, I would just recommend, right, even though it's kind of strange that you guys are not being introduced to this far in Sri Lanka, but just Google growth mindset, right? And say some tips for recruiters, right? But make sure that you go for a reputed site, and because sometimes people might misunderstand. So Carol Dweck is a good place, right? Carol Dweck, she's the one who started it, right? And then you follow the links, and there are tips for recruiters, right? And there are tips for CEOs. Just take a Google study, the Orange study, and write it in detail, right? You know, and do a workshop, and then you can find a lot of tips that you can use. I mean, but I'm not recruiters for professionals, so I can't tell you how. I just know some of them. But if you want, if your child is not good at math and want me to encourage them, I can do that very easily. I can show you some activities just like that. But I know that this is applied in the different types of forums. But we have done some, there are some workshops that we can actually do for like educators and for general public. Parents workshops, right? That's another thing that we are familiar with, right? Okay. But yeah, so the Google study is very interesting. I would recommend you to do that. Yes.
Can I maybe, because we are going to also announce some of your other talks tonight.
Okay, yep.
So I will stop the questions here if you don't mind. If you guys have any other questions, Professor Kirthi will be sharing some of the resources via email. You've provided us your email addresses, and if you don't mind, we will email you a follow-up to this session. And that follow-up will include some of the resources as well as the upcoming talks by Professor Kirthi. As far as I know, Professor, for the next session, which is on July 3rd, Tuesday at 6 p.m., this is a Fulbright Commission auditorium, and you have to register. So we will send you in the said email, you will get the tips, the guide on how to.
Yes, if you actually register through this. This one I want to cater it for parents and for general public and for kids, right? So if you are a parent and if you want to bring your children to this, please register for this, right? And then so that they know how many people are coming, and I'll do some activities that we do for parents and kids and for the general public. And that's a plug for my next one, right?
Yes, and okay, let's have this mark the end of the session. I would like to, on behalf of Creative Software and our audience tonight, I would like to thank you very much for making the time for us and making the effort to kind of translate the growth mindset into the workplace, specifically to the IT industry, something that all of us can really relate to. You've mentioned some of the giant names in the Silicon Valley and how they have benefited from the growth mindset. And I hope this can also give wing to programs in Sri Lanka as we develop the Sri Lankan IT industry further. As a token of appreciation,
I didn't know that I was going to get a gift. Thank you so much.
There's always a token of appreciation to remember us by.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Kirthi. Thank you. You guys were all awesome. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for attending.
I'll be around for a little bit, right?
Exactly. So right now, I'd like to invite you to stand up, mingle. We have some treats reserved for you. There's a vegetarian and non-vegetarian table, and Professor Kirthi will be around to answer any other questions or enter discussions that you might want to initiate with him. Thank you very much, and I wish you a fantastic
Thank you. Have a great night, guys. Yeah.